right? And how we were to behave while she's speaking. Who can remind us what we need to do so that we put on a good show, right? We don't want to be embarrassing. Lily?
Be polite and kind and raise your hand when you need to speak.
Okay, good. Corbin?
Be appropriate.
Be appropriate, good. Kenneth?
Be completely respectful.
Be completely respectful, good. Skyly? Be welcoming, good. Good. Don't talk when. Okay, good. Amanda?
Only put your head down on the desk.
Right, don't lay your head down on the desk. We should do what? Right. Square up, you got it. Samantha? Okay, don't laugh. Unless it's funny. If it's funny, you can laugh. Sometimes she's funny. Then it's okay to laugh.
Can I go right there?
Yeah, right, go ahead. Huh? Okay, so here we go. We're going to get started, all right? Because we don't have a whole lot of time. We have until 12:31. So, plenty of time. Okay, so we're going to get started. We've just basically learned about the 5 religions of the world, right?
Yeah.
So can we name those real quick? Go ahead, name one. Judaism. Corey? Christianity. Kenneth?
I believe you pronounce it Yom Kippur.
That's a holiday, but that's not a religion. Good try. Amanda? What'd you say?
Islam.
Islam. Buddhist. And go ahead. Begins with an H. They're vegetarians. Maria?
Hinduism.
Hinduism. Good. And so we've only learned just a little bit about each one. So I told them that you're an expert in Judaism, right? She's going to answer all your questions. And I told you guys wanted a lot about the holidays. That's what we wanted a lot about. Because we're working on a project. Yes. We need good grades to teach us. So this is Selena, and she'll tell you a little bit about herself. I know some of you guys, yep. They want to know where you were from, right, D'Anthony? Yes? All right. And where you went to college, and all those kinds of things.
Well, I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio, and I now live in Columbus, Ohio. I went to college for my undergraduate at University of Miami in Florida, and I did my graduate work at Ohio State University, so that's where I am now. I met Mrs. Kervick because I work with her daughter Lexi because I do a lot in sports medicine, especially with basketball, and so that's how we got to be friends. So I guess I'm here to talk about Judaism. Does anybody know anybody that's Jewish? Yeah? Okay, a couple. Have you ever talked to them about their religion or their holidays or anything like that? Okay. So we can do this 2 ways. Either you can ask me about a holiday and I'll explain the holiday, or I can start talking, and when you guys have questions, I can go ahead and do that. What do you prefer? Start talking? Okay. All right, good. Okay, so does anybody know, so Judaism started a long, long thousands of years ago. It started as a religion. It was the first of the major 3 monotheistic religions. Do you guys know what monotheistic means? Okay, monotheistic means you believe in one God, not like the Greeks who believed in a lot of gods. So Judaism started with the idea of monotheism, and the person who was the founder of our religion was a person named Abraham. Has anybody heard of Abraham in the Bible? Okay. Abraham was the first Jew, all right? So Abraham was married to Sarah, and they had some children. They had a son, Isaac, and then Isaac had a son, Joseph. Okay, so all the Jews were hanging out, and Joseph has anybody heard of Joseph and his amazing dream-colored coat, Technicolor dream coat? Have you guys ever heard of that play? Okay, so I'll talk a little bit about Joseph, and we'll start from where we were in Egypt. So Joseph had a lot of siblings, a ton of siblings, like 12 brothers, and he was the youngest, and he was his dad's favorite child. And all of his older brothers were very, very jealous of him. And so they wanted to somehow get rid of Joseph so that Joseph wasn't the favorite anymore. So they tricked Joseph and took him and sold him to the Egyptians. And so Joseph went down to Egypt, and he was a slave in Egypt. And one day he got in trouble with the family he was working for, and they threw him in jail. All right? And when Joseph was in jail, he had this ability to be able to interpret dreams. So if somebody had a dream, he would be able to interpret it and predict the future. So, does anybody know what a pharaoh is? All right, what's a pharaoh?
It's the king of Egypt.
Okay, so the king of Egypt, Pharaoh, was having all these dreams all the time, and nobody could figure out what the dreams were about. And so he was constantly having these nightmares, and he wanted to know what they were. So he heard about this guy in jail named Joseph who could maybe help him figure out what the dreams were about. So he called on Joseph, and Joseph correctly predicted the dream that he had. And it was that Egypt was going to have 7 years of plenty, meaning lots of crops, lots of money, everything was going to go well, and then 7 years of famine, which means they weren't going to have any crops, they were going to be very poor. So Joseph helped him interpret this dream, and then the Pharaoh was so grateful to him that he made Joseph in charge of figuring out how to save enough of the crops and money for when the famine came, okay? So Joseph became the Pharaoh's most trusted advisor. So everything went well, and Egypt was great and doing just fine. And then the Pharaoh had a son. And the son grew up and decided that Joseph and the Jews were becoming a little bit too powerful. So the son of Pharaoh decided that he was going to make all of the Jews slaves, all right, which was not very nice. So he also said that the firstborn Jewish son in every family had to be killed. Has anybody ever heard this story? The story of Moses?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Moses was the firstborn son of a Jewish family in Egypt, and the mom did not want to kill him. So, put Joseph in a little basket and sent him down the river. And do you know who found him? Yes.
It was like a king or something like that.
It's close. It was Pharaoh's daughter, so the princess.
There's like a book about it.
Yeah. So the princess found this little baby in the river and took the baby out and raised Moses in the palace. But nobody knew he was Jewish. It was a big, big secret, okay? All this time, the Jews were still slaves in Egypt. They were helping make all the pyramids, okay? Have you guys learned about the pyramids yet? Yeah. But it was really, really hard work, and, the Jews didn't like being slaves, obviously. And so when Moses grew up, he later found out who he was. He found out he was really Jewish, and he felt so bad for all of his Jewish family and friends that were enslaved. So Moses couldn't decide what to do, and God called upon Moses and said, hey, I want you to help make your people free, okay? And this is the start of the first holiday that I'm going to talk about. Does anybody know the holiday of Passover? Is anybody doing that holiday? Okay. This is where the holiday of Passover comes. So, Moses went to Pharaoh and said, hey, this is enough. Enough is enough. You gotta let my people go. They don't like being slaves. It's not fair. I want you to let my people go. And what do you think Pharaoh said? Yes. No. Pharaoh said, no way. Not a chance. Good luck. They're great for our economy. We're not getting rid of the slaves. So Moses said to Pharaoh, listen, if you don't let my people be free, God is going to send down some plagues on you. Does anybody know what a plague is? Yes.
Like a really bad sickness?
Yeah, so all kinds of different plagues. So the first, I don't remember the order, so you'll have to forgive me, but one of the plagues, for instance, God turned the entire Nile River into blood, okay? So that was one of the plagues. So Moses went back and said to Pharaoh, all right, listen, you made God angry. I'm giving you another chance. Please, he asked again, go ahead and let my people go. And what do you think Pharaoh said?
No.
Exactly. So Pharaoh said, nope. And so Moses said to God, you got to help me out here. He's not doing what he's supposed to be doing. And so then God sent another plague down, and it was tons and tons and tons of frogs everywhere. In your bed, in your bathroom, on the floor, frogs everywhere. And so Moses went again to Pharaoh and said, hey, please let my people go. And what do you think Pharaoh did?
No.
Nope, Pharaoh was very, very stubborn and did not want it to happen. So, God sent down another plague, and it was this time locusts. Does anybody know what locusts are? Yes.
They're bugs that make a lot of noise.
Yes, they're giant, disgusting bugs, and there were locusts everywhere. You couldn't walk outside and you would end up eating one of the locusts because there were so many, okay? So all the Egyptian people were suffering and saying, listen, Pharaoh, this is bad, you gotta do something about it. And Moses went back to Pharaoh and said, Pharaoh, what did he say?
Yes.
No.
What did Moses ask him? Let my people go. And what did Pharaoh say?
No.
No. So then God sent down another plague. He sent down darkness so that it was dark all day long. There was no light, no sun, nothing. And there was darkness all day. And so the Egyptian people were suffering. And Moses said, hey, this can all go away. Everything can be good if you just let our people go. And Pharaoh was very, very stubborn. And so God kept sending down plagues, and the plagues got worse and worse and worse. And so then Pharaoh said on one time, okay, I'll let your people go. Fine, we've had enough. And so Moses told everybody, yes, we're going, we're leaving, pack up everything, we're going to a different land. And then at the last minute, Pharaoh changed his mind and said, just kidding, everybody has to stay here. So Moses went to him and said, listen, things are going to get very, very bad if you don't let my people go. And Moses said, if you don't let my people go, the firstborn son of every Egyptian is going to be killed, is going to die, okay? Because that's originally what Pharaoh had decreed, had said that needed to happen to the Jewish people. So Pharaoh didn't believe Moses, and he said, no, you're staying, that's crazy. And Moses said, listen, the angel of death is going to come and kill every firstborn son of every Egyptian family if you don't let my people go. And Pharaoh didn't believe him. So that night, Moses told all of the Jewish families to put a marking on their door, okay? So that when the angel of death came, they would know the angel would know to pass over those households of the Jewish families. So that's where we get the holiday Passover, because the angel of death passed over the Jewish households. You guys get that? So then, the angel of death came that night, and all the Jewish people were ready and packing and packing and packing all their stuff. And the angel of death came and killed the firstborn son of every Egyptian family. And Pharaoh had a son who was killed during this. And in the morning, Pharaoh said, fine, just get out. Get out of my country. I don't want you guys any more here. And then all the Jewish people packed up and left, okay? And they packed up in such a hurry that when they made their bread from the night before, the dough didn't have time to rise, okay? When you make bread, you have to give the dough time to rise before you bake it. If you don't, and the dough isn't risen, it'll turn out to, and you bake it, it'll turn out to be like a cracker, a flat piece of bread, okay? And so this is why on Passover, Jewish people eat matzah. Does anybody know what matzah is? What's matzah?
It's like bread.
Yeah, it's a very thin, cracker-like piece of bread. And this is because the Jews left in such a hurry, the dough didn't have time to rise, and they had packed it in their bags, and the sun was so hot it baked the dough in their backpacks. And so we now eat on Passover this flat piece of bread, and we don't eat anything that's leavened, meaning we don't eat any bread for the days of Passover, just this flat piece of matzah and crackers. Some of you may have eaten matzo ball soup before. That's another thing that we eat on Passover, yes.
What day is Passover?
So Passover, it happens around the time of Easter, okay? Because Passover, actually, does everybody know during Easter, the Last Supper? Everybody know what that is? The Last Supper is Jesus celebrating Passover, okay? So it happens then, but the Jewish calendar and the calendar that we use, the English calendar, is different. And so every year, Passover happens on a different day during the English calendar, but it's somewhere around Easter time. Yes?
Was Moses Jewish?
Moses was Jewish, yes.
Okay.
Any other questions about Passover? No? All right, what other holidays do you want to know about? Yes.
I believe I still can't pronounce it. Yom Kippur.
Yom Kippur, okay? So Yom Kippur happens in September-ish, around the time of September. And Yom Kippur is the most serious day of our year, all right? It's a very solemn holiday. And the Yom Kippur is essentially our Day of Atonement. Does anybody know what atonement means? Okay. Atonement means essentially when you do something wrong and you feel very, very sorry for it. You're atoning. So you have to go and ask the person for forgiveness, you have to make amends, you have to recognize that you did something wrong, okay? So, Yom Kippur happens right around our New Year. So on Yom Kippur, it's the holiest day of our year. And we go to the temple and we think about all the things that happened that past year and what kind of things we would like to change or do better for the next year. And what kind of things that maybe we want to change or people that we have to apologize to for things that we did. Or things that you know you did and you have to apologize to God for, okay? And so you also think about, for your next year, what kind of goals do you want in the next year coming? So you talk to God and you make promises about the next year and what kind of person you're going to be and how you're going to treat your family and your friends. And so on Yom Kippur, Jews don't eat anything, okay? We fast for 26 hours. So from sundown of one day to sundown of the next day, you don't eat anything. You also aren't supposed to drink anything. No water, no food, nothing, okay? Which is really very hard to do if you've ever tried it. And that whole time, because you're not supposed to be thinking about food and about what makes you feel good and satisfying your needs, you're supposed to be thinking about what kind of person you want to be in that next year. And so this is what Yom Kippur is about. It's one day during the whole year that you really set your goals for the next year and what kind of person you want to be and how you want to treat your friends and family. Any questions about that? Yeah?
So wait, you don't eat, drink, nothing.
Nothing.
Couldn't you like either starve or dehydration?
Not from 1 year. The only exception is if you have some kind of medical condition, then you can. So somebody who's diabetic who has to eat, that's a different story, okay? But you know why they don't eat? Why Jews don't eat is because the idea of Yom Kippur. So why do you get in trouble? Why do you break promises to your friends or you're mean to other people in class? It's because you can't control yourself. You don't have self-control. So you felt like hitting somebody and you hit somebody. Or you felt like calling out and you called out. Or you yelled at your mom, it's because you don't have you lost control. You get what I'm saying? So the idea of not eating and not drinking is you really want to eat and drink, okay? You're dying to eat and drink. And it's whether or not you can exercise the control to be disciplined and not eat that day so that you can think about what you want for your life. Does that make sense for everybody? Any questions on that? Now, at the end of the fast, we have a huge, huge meal that's called the break fast, and then everybody gets together afterwards and eats. Any questions on that? Okay. What other holidays do we have? Oh. Yes. Hanukkah. Okay. Hanukkah is the most fun of all the holidays. Okay. Hanukkah lasts for 8 days and 8 nights, and it is all about celebrating. So, why did Hanukkah happen? All right. Oh. Yes, why did Hanukkah happen?
So, they were celebrating. So this one guy came in and took over and said the Jews weren't allowed to food. So this one guy came up and said no, and then him and his brothers went and called the whole army of this guy who took over the Jews, and then they went into this temple that they destroyed that was in I forget, but then they went in and they were cleaning all the remains of all the Greek gods and all that stuff, and then they were trying to light this candle thing, and there was only a little bit of oil left, and it was not enough to even burn for like a day. So then they went into they poured it into the lamp, and mysteriously God must have helped them and lasted put more oil in there, and the candles lasted longer for 8 days and 8 nights.
Yeah, that's a pretty good synopsis. I'm impressed. So, he's right. So, the Jews were living where they were living, and so these outsiders came in and took over. And so the Jews are not allowed to pray the way they want to, they're not allowed to practice the religion, you have to do everything the way we do it. So they went into the very, very holy Jewish temples and they destroyed the temples, okay? And they ruined them and put up their gods and everything like that. So the Jews put together an army, and this army were called the Maccabees, okay? And so the Maccabees were a much smaller army, didn't have the right type of weapons, were way outnumbered compared to the outsiders, and the Maccabees started to fight, all right? And so they went into this temple, like he said, to find shelter and to rest, and they cleaned the whole temple to try and make it nice and holy again. And so they had this little tiny bit of oil, and they thought this oil isn't gonna last us any time, barely the night. And so they were worried because maybe they'll freeze to death, maybe they won't be able to eat anything. They were very, very worried. And so instead, God, the miracle God did was to make the oil burn for 8 days and 8 nights so that they had enough warmth and enough light to survive for those 8 days and 8 nights and win against the outsiders, kick them back out of their land, rebuild the temple. And so that is why we celebrate Hanukkah. It's all about the Festival of Lights. That's why we light the candles for Hanukkah. Has anybody seen that? Okay. And the other thing is that we on Hanukkah we eat things that are fried because we want to remember the oil. So we eat fried things. So you eat potato latkes if you've ever had that. It's a fried potato pancake. The other thing that people eat are donuts because donuts are fried. And so we try to eat all kinds of fried things to remember the miracle of the oil. The other thing that happens is because it's such a celebration and it's such a happy holiday because of the miracle, every night the Jewish kid gets a present. For 8 days and 8 nights, a Hanukkah present, okay? And then the other thing you've probably seen is they play a game with a dreidel. Does anybody know what a dreidel is? Yes.
It's like a little, it's like a kind of like a top.
Yeah, it's a top with a spinning top, and it has 4 sides. And depending on what side it lands on, there's a game that children play with Hanukkah gelt. Does anybody know what gelt is? Yes, they're like little coins that, they're covered in coins, but they're actually little chocolates. And so they play a game with this dreidel and with the Hanukkah gelt. Yes, that is a dreidel right there, perfect. And so it's a game depending on what they land in. You put some of your Hanukkah gelt in. It's actually a game with betting, and you put however much Hanukkah gelt in, and then when it lands, it means different things, and you divide up the chocolate, the gelt, in different ways. Anybody else questions about that holiday? All right, do we want to talk about another holiday? Yes.
Shemoneh dessert.
What is it?
It's like after. It's after the Sukkot.
After Sukkot.
Yeah.
Okay. So after, let's see what holiday it took. Jews have a lot of holidays, so it's hard to remember all of them. Oh, Shemini Atzeret. Okay, so Sukkot is a holiday to welcome the springtime and to welcome the harvest. And so Sukkot is in the spring, and you try to, it's to try and celebrate the new crops that are going to come in that year. And so everything is done outside, and Jews build something called a sukkah. Does anybody know what a sukkah is? A sukkah is like an outside tent kind of thing, but it's not a tent. It's like they build these, it's a wooden building that they make, and they put it open to the sky, and Jews go in there and they eat, and they have their meals in there to celebrate and to pray for a good harvest, okay? Yes?
You mean something like a absolute that, something like that?
A what?
Yeah.
Yes, kind of like that, yeah. They take it down and they put it up every year. And they eat their dinners in there, and they invite a lot of people, and everybody's supposed to be together to try and pray for good crops. And so what you were saying is that holiday is to ask for rain and for things to help the good harvest so that they can make a great meal and a great living for the next year. Yes?
Can you speak any other languages?
Can I speak any other languages? Yes, I can speak some other languages. Can you speak any other languages?
No.
Maybe one day you will.
I speak Latin and a little bit of Spanish.
Speak Latin and Spanish, okay. All right, any other questions? Yes.
Do you celebrate like Christmas and Easter? Do you celebrate those holidays?
So I celebrate those holidays with my Christian friends, but Jews don't celebrate those holidays. Good question. Yes.
Do we celebrate any other holidays?
Yeah, we celebrate a ton of other holidays.
I like
Yes. So has anybody heard of the holiday of Rosh Hashanah? What is it? Do you know?
I forget what it's called. I forget how it goes. I just heard of it a couple times.
Okay, so Rosh Hashanah is the Jewish New Year, okay? It is a huge celebration. It happens around September, right before Yom Kippur, okay? And Rosh Hashanah is a really fun holiday. It's, people eat apples and honey on that day. The reason you eat apples and honey is because it's supposed to symbolize that you want a sweet new year, something very good to come. And it happens right before Yom Kippur because it's the beginning of a new year. Then you think about all the things you want to do differently and what kind of person you want to be, and then you have Yom Kippur 10, 13 days later. Okay? So we go to temple on that day, we eat huge meals, and we eat different kinds of foods. So apples and honey, and we eat, does anybody know what a pomegranate is? Okay, we eat pomegranates because of how many seeds they have inside, and we want good seeds to be planted for the new year, for the next year to come. Any other questions on Rosh Hashanah? Good. Any other holidays you want to talk about? Yes.
This is how I'm going to spell it. M-U-H-A-R-R-A.
And what is it? Let's see here. I don't know if that's a big holiday because it's right before Rosh Hashanah, so it's kind of like the start of Rosh Hashanah. Let's see what other holidays we can talk about. Has anybody heard yes, do you have one?
I was going to ask if there's any more slave-related holidays.
Slave-related holidays, got it, okay. So this is a good one. It's called Purim. Has anybody ever heard of Purim? Okay. Purim is a holiday where people get dressed up almost like in costumes, and they tell the story of Queen Esther. Has anybody heard the story of Queen Esther? Okay. So, during Purim, there was another situation where there was a king. His name was King Ahasuerus. And he was a really nice king. He was jovial, everything was fine, he was happy, the Jews were living fine. But the king had an advisor whose name was Haman. Has anyone heard this story? Okay. So Haman was a bad dude. He was not nice, and he did not like the Jews. So constantly, in the ear of the king, he was saying, oh, let's get rid of them, let's kill them, we can make them slaves again, all that kind of stuff. And so the king didn't care one way or another. Said, all right, if that's what you want to do it. If you don't, don't. Yes?
So was this guy that wanted to kill an Egyptian?
No, this is somewhere else. Okay? This is a different part. This country doesn't really exist anymore. Okay? So, yes.
So basically, King's advisor was kind of deceiving. King didn't really know what was going to happen.
You got it. So, it was a big problem. And the reason that Haman did not like the Jews was because Haman was really trying to overthrow the king and try to become in power. And so he was conspiring with a couple other soldiers in the king's army to figure out how they could overthrow the king. And one of the Jewish people overheard a conversation about this. That Jewish person who overheard the conversation was a man named Mordecai. Okay? And Mordecai went and told the king and said, listen, I heard some of these soldiers talking about killing you. You need to be careful. So Mordecai saved the king's life, but Haman didn't like him because it was really Haman's plan all along. So Haman was telling the king, you need to get rid of these people, so on and so forth. And Mordecai had a very, very, very beautiful niece named Esther, okay? And so Mordecai was trying to get Esther to meet the king because she knew if Esther met the king would fall in love with her. And so somehow the king and Esther met. And the king did fall in love with Esther. And Esther was Jewish. And so all this time Haman was trying to kill the Jews. And Esther, the king didn't know that Esther was Jewish. And Esther could have said, oh, forget about my people. I'm a queen now. I don't have to worry. It's not going to be my problem. You know, sometimes when you see something bad happening to somebody else, you say, well, that's not my problem. I'm not going to get involved, right? When the person really needs your help. So Esther had a choice to make. Was she going to just save her own butt, or was she going to look out for the rest of her people? And what do you think she did?
Look out for the rest of the people.
Yeah, so she looked out for the rest of her people, and she went and she convinced the king that the Jewish people were good and that he needed to step in and save them and stop Haman and throw Haman in jail. And that's what the king did. So it was a huge celebration because Queen Esther essentially saved all her people. And a lot of times in history, women don't always get the role of playing the hero in some of these stories. And so Queen Esther was a big, big hero for the Jewish people, and because she saved her people. So every year on Purim, we tell this story. And every single time the story's told and the name Haman, the bad guy, is said, there's these noisemakers that we shake to drown out the name of Haman because we don't want to even hear the name because he was so evil and so had such bad intentions for the Jewish people. All right, any questions, more questions on holidays? So let's talk a little bit about food stuff, shall we? Okay, so what do you guys know anything about Jewish food or any Jewish practices with regards to food? Yes?
The potato pancake?
That's the latke. When do you eat it? It's fried. Yes, very smart.
Sweet stuffed cabbage.
Yep, definitely. Yes?
I want to know if the Jewish people eat English food like we do.
Yes, they eat McDonald's. Some do, some don't. Just like anybody. Any other questions? Good question. Okay, so people who are Jewish and keep the religion very strictly, they eat kosher. Does anybody know what kosher means? What?
So, kind of lame.
So kosher means, Gage, that there are certain rules in the Bible talking about what kind of foods you should and should not eat. And so a few rules, like Jews are not supposed to eat any pork products, okay? No bacon, no pepperoni, no sausage.
No bacon and no sauce.
I know.
I do not want to live in.
I have never had any bacon or pepperoni or sausage
I
or ham.
You got some of that stuff that's good.
Ham's the best.
Bacon
Yes.
Would you get in trouble if you did, like, eat that? Is
With
it
who?
Like, if, would they,
With who?
like, if you ate it,
Huh?
would you not be considered?
No, it's like anything, you know, different Jews. There's some Jews that eat pork, but you're not supposed to, okay? It depends on how strict you keep it. And like in anything in life, it's not like you mess up and you're done and it's over. You mess up, you figure, maybe I want to do better for next time, and you try to do better for next time, right?
So, why did you guys not eat that kind of meat?
Because in the Bible, in the Old Testament, there are a lot of rules outlining what kind of food you eat. And so one of the things about the food is that the animal has to have what we call a cloven hoof and has to regurgitate its food. So, for instance, let me give you an example. A cloven hoof, which you're making that face, but you guys are going to see that all of you eat these foods. So, for instance, does anybody know what a cloven hoof is? Yeah.
It's on a cow.
On a cow, exactly. And then, does a cow regurgitate its own food? Yes. So all of you eat beef, so you eat this animal. So a cow has a cloven hoof and it has multiple stomachs. So we can eat cow. Okay, so we can eat beef. But a pig has a cloven hoof but doesn't regurgitate its own food. So we cannot eat a pig. Also, not that we would eat it, but you can't eat a camel. It has a cloven hoof, but it doesn't have multiple stomachs. So you have to, no matter what, you look at the rules like that and find the animals that do and do not fit that criteria. Yes.
So can you guys like eat lamb?
Yes, you can eat lamb, I'm pretty sure.
What about deer?
No, I don't think so, because I don't think deer regurgitate their own beef.
Can you eat like birds, like turkey?
Great, so yes, there are certain birds that are outlined in the Torah or the Bible that you can eat versus you can't eat. The other things that you can't eat are shellfish, bottom feeders. So, what is an example of a shellfish or a bottom feeder? Yes.
Crayfish,
Yep.
lobster,
Yes.
Crab?
Yep. Shrimp also, okay? Okay? Yeah.
What are like other foods you can eat other than like the?
You can eat fish, all kinds of fish with scales. You can eat turkey, you can eat salmon, you can eat chicken, you can eat beef. Yes.
What about like drinks? Is there certain drinks you're not allowed to drink?
You can drink whatever you want, okay?
How do you know what animals have a cloven hoof?
Well, you could either sit and analyze it yourself, but tradition over many years, many of the rabbis have already figured it out and they pass it down generation to generation and tell you.
How do you know if they have like the second thing, not the cloven hoof?
They know if animals do or don't. Yeah, it's not hard to figure out. Any other questions on that? Okay, so the other thing you can't do is mix milk or dairy products and meat. So, Jews are not supposed to eat cheeseburgers. Oh, wow. Now, they can make certain cheeses that aren't made of dairy products. Like, so people who are lactose intolerant, there's special cheeses that don't have milk or dairy in them, and then we use that. But you're not supposed to mix milk and meat together in the same meal. And some people keep it so strict that they don't even put the milk and the meat in the same refrigerator. So very, very, what we call Orthodox Jews who keep it very, very strictly. They have 2 refrigerators, 2 stoves, 2 sets of plates, 2 sets of silverware so that there's no chance that any milk and meat will mix. Yes?
so if you eat your cheeseburger and you wear a glass milk.
Well, you can't eat your cheeseburger because it has cheese on it.
Oh, okay.
What if you just eat a hamburger?
There's a certain amount of time you have to wait so that they feel like it's passed through your digestion and then you can have the milk.
Why can't you?
So there is something in the Old Testament, in the Bible, there's a law that says you shouldn't bathe a baby in their mother's milk, okay? So what that means is they think that there's something like not exactly right about cooking a baby animal in the milk that the mother is supposed to give the baby. Do you understand what I mean? That's why they don't do it. Now, like I said, not all Jews follow it strictly. It's like not all Christians follow everything as strictly as others. Not all Muslims, not all Hindus, not all Buddhists. So you'll meet Jews in your life that don't follow these rules. And maybe sometimes in their life they will, some don't, some do. But these are the rules that you're striving to follow, I guess, is the best way to put it. Yes?
What does kosher mean?
Kosher means, kosher is, there's not an exact translation, but kosher is the culmination of all these rules about food, about what you can and what you can't eat. Not only that, the Jews that are very, very strict about keeping kosher also have to have a special kind of meat. They're not allowed to, it's a lot of rules, it's hard. They can't eat the same meat and just go to a grocery store and pick out any ground beef they want. That ground beef has to be kosher ground beef. And how it becomes kosher is that the cow is killed a certain way. All the blood is drained from the cow a certain way. and the butcher that killed the cow is trained by rabbis in this practice and knows what prayers to say when making the food. So, somebody who keeps the Jewish laws very strictly won't go and eat at somebody else's house who does not keep kosher. Yes?
I'll let you finish with the food and then I have another question about something.
Okay, any other questions? Yes?
What's the Jewish's favorite holiday?
Well, different Jews you'll get different answers, but my favorite holiday is Passover because I love the story of Moses in Egypt, and it's a huge meal, and all your family comes, and it's like just a lot of food and a lot of celebration. So that's my favorite holiday. Good question, yes.
Is it expensive to live that way?
Oh my gosh, yes. Imagine, you have to buy 2 fridges, you have to buy 2 sets of dishes, you have to have 2 stoves, you have to have 2 sets of silverware. It's crazy, it's very, very expensive, so not everybody can live that way because the meat that you have to buy that's kosher is even more expensive than regular meat because it has to be done so meticulously. It can't be done quickly, so there's certain rules and things like that, so it takes more time and it's more expensive. Everything is more expensive if you keep kosher. Yes.
So do you do that?
I don't keep kosher all the way, okay? I'm like half and half. So I do the best I can, but also it's difficult. Where I live in Columbus, there's not a lot of places that sell kosher meat, so how can I buy it? I'd have to bring it from Cleveland, bring it down, and do it that way, which sometimes I do, but I don't come to Cleveland every other week. So you do the best you can for where you are in life, and every single time, maybe every year, I decide I'm going to do a little bit more, and I try like that. Any other questions? Does anybody know about Shabbat or the Sabbath? So the Sabbath for Jews starts Friday at sundown and ends Saturday at sundown. Okay? Everything in Judaism starts at sundown and ends at sundown. If you want to know when a holiday starts, it's sundown the night before to sundown the day after.
How many languages can you speak?
I can speak, including English. Am I including English?
So yeah.
Like 3.5.
The question I was gonna ask was like, do you have to have a certain dress code?
Great, such a good question. So the answer is maybe. It depends on how closely you want to follow. So the people that are very, very orthodox, they do follow the dress code. I don't, okay? But what they say is they want the women to dress modestly, okay? So you wouldn't see somebody who is a very, very religious Jew in low-cut shirts and tank tops, spaghetti straps, short skirts, things like that. They want to be dressed modestly, okay? And the men, a lot of times you'll see them in suits, okay? And they wear something on their head called a yarmulke. Has anybody ever seen that? A little yarmulke or kippah? Do you know why they wear a yarmulke or a kippah? It's to stay humble, to always remember that something is above you, that God is above you. That's why they wear it there, as a reminder to know that God is always above them, watching them, and there's always a higher power. So you have to stay humble, and you have to live your life correctly.
Why don't women want them?
Why don't women wear yarmulkes? You want the real answer?
Yeah.
Okay. So, in this class, let's take a poll. Would we say that the boys are a little bit more mischievous than the girls?
Yes.
Okay. The same is true, going to be true all throughout your life, okay? The boys are always just a little bit more mischievous, so they just need a little extra reminder that something is above them. The girls don't need it. They already are, they're good to go. They know how to act right, they do the right thing always. The boys are the ones that are more mischievous, biting on their pencils and spitting out the stuff. That's why they need it. Yes. Yep, that's you. Yes.
There's a holiday called
I don't know that holiday. I don't know that holiday. You could be right, there's a lot of them.
Don't you guys celebrate a holiday like about the moon, where it starts at like the beginning of the month and ends at the end?
I don't think that's us, I think that's Islam. They celebrate Ramadan for the whole month. Is that what you're thinking about?
I don't know.
I think think that might be what you're thinking about, yes.
Do your parents have to be Jewish to become Jewish?
That's a really good question. So, in Judaism, you are considered, so you can become Jewish if you convert to Judaism, okay? So if somebody really wants to become Jewish and they weren't born Jewish, then they can convert to Judaism, and there's a whole process for that. But the way, if you are considered Jewish by law, if your mother was Jewish. So if your mom's Jewish, you're Jewish. No, yours isn't, mine is.
Basically, the giver is the,
Huh?
so basically the giver is Jewish.
Yes. If your mom's Jewish, you're considered Jewish.
What if your dad?
So if your dad's Jewish, you might, nowadays, people consider it Jewish, but if you go back to the olden times, the real law, the mother had to be Jewish because they feel like the mother has the greatest influence over the home. And so if the mom is Jewish, then you're Jewish. But there are people that convert to Judaism, neither one of their parents were Jewish and they want to become Jewish, and they can't. Good question. Any other questions? Yeah.
What's the difference from Judaism and Christianity?
Judaism and Christianity, there's one big difference. And the difference is that Jews don't yet believe that the Messiah has come.
No more.
Messiah.
What's Messiah?
What's the Messiah? Okay, so Christians believe that Jesus was the first coming of the Messiah, and Jesus will come back again, right? Jews believe that the Messiah hasn't come yet, not even one time. So we're still waiting for the first time that the Messiah comes. In Christianity, Jesus came and died for the sins on the cross, and that was considered the first coming. And Christians are waiting for the second coming. Jews are still waiting for the first coming.
Do you have to have a certain handwriting, or can you do it regularly?
Say it again?
Do you have to have a certain handwriting, or can you do it regularly?
Do what regularly?
Your handwriting, how?
No, my handwriting is normal in English, but Jews use Hebrew, is what you might be
She's
thinking
talking
about.
about the Korean, what's it called?
Oh, the Torah is written in Hebrew.
Torah, yeah.
All right.
Okay.